We're ranking The Cure's studio albums, including Songs of a Lost World. Let the festivities commence. Welcome to By Candlelight, beaming goth, dark wave and post-punk straight into your brain. In stereo today, so twice the power. And with great power comes great irresponsibility. Some say she can only sleep upside down from rafters that have been ethically sourced. Others say she doesn't use hand sanitizer, only the tears of Dave Vanian. But everyone else agrees that she is the night. She's my co-host for today, Eliza. I first interviewed Eliza in that brooding thing up there. So today we're going to be doing a joint ranking of the 14 studio albums by The Cure. That means no compilations and no live recordings. We'll start at position 14 and then we'll take it in turns to see how we've both ranked them. And we haven't conferred at all, have we?
No, we haven't, not yet.
So we have no idea how each of us have ranked these. So this is going to be a surprise right now for us, as it is for you guys. Will we have the same or different rankings? Who knows? It's all in the hands of the gods now. Well, it's not. It's actually in our hands. Just to say, these are our personal opinions, so we're not professing to have a universally accepted best of list. So please don't shake your fists at us. Give us your ranking in the comments. So how did you find ranking these albums? Was it hard or was it quite straightforward? Did you know what the ranking was going to be?
Well, apart from my top 3, it was quite difficult because I find that they change a lot. You'll have an album at number 8 and an album at number 2. And there's this much difference between them.
Yeah. There's so many different sounds that The Cure have got. So, I mean, they haven't necessarily got one album that's really joyous. They've got a lot of albums that are really, really desolate. But I think to choose albums from The Cure over lots of different eras is really quite difficult and can totally depend on your mood. So yeah, I found it quite hard as well.
Yeah.
So at number 14, guests first. Eliza, what is at your number 14?
My number 14 is their self-titled album, which I think it's not a terrible album by any means, but just not particularly special to me. I listened to it once and I didn't really mesh with it. But I'll give it merit for its album cover, because the artwork on that's like what a creepy kid would draw in a horror film and show to their parents and be like, this is the guy that lives in my room. That's kind of what I thought of it, so I'll give it merit for the album artwork.
Yeah. Cool. So my 14th is Wild Mood Swings. I think it starts quite well with Want. I think it sets the tone quite well at the beginning of the album. Don't know what they were doing with the psychedelia of Club America, but generally they're just sort of half-hearted stabs at quirkiness, and it just doesn't quite work. Sadly, not really a memorable album. So yeah, that is my 14th. Number 13, I have 413 Dream. And I've got to say, there's not really a lot in it for me compared to Wild Mood Swings. Again, it's quite a forgettable album. It feels like they're trying a little bit too hard. Underneath the Stars is all right, quite like the reverse vocals on it, but again, it just goes rapidly downhill for me. Apparently, Sleep When I'm Dead was originally a demo for Head on a Door, but you'd never know it. Just a really forgettable album for me.
Yep, I actually agree, because my 13th place was also 413 Dream. It's got slight moments on it, but very few and far between. And like you said, just not the world's most memorable album.
Yeah, absolutely. One in common so far. Number 12. What do you got?
I've put Wild Mood Swings. I think it's, for me, a little better than the other two, just because of the song Want. I really do love the passion and the fury in that song and the lyrics in it. So that's the standout song for me, and because I listened to it so much, I thought it puts it a little bit above the others for me.
Okay, so my number 12 is The Top. we might have a difference of opinion here. I actually like this album a lot more than I always think I do, if that makes sense. Like, really like Piggy in the Mirror, Shake Dog Shake, Wailing Wall. Yeah, it's Wailing Wall, isn't it? I've got to say, when I hear Shake Dog Shake and Piggy in the Mirror, I always think of The Cure in Orange, the live gig that they did. That has yet to be remastered. I'm talking to you, The Cure. But yeah, those tracks feature quite prominently in that gig. So whenever I hear these tracks in this album, it always reminds me of that gig, and it's so cool. Please do check it out on YouTube. Never been a fan of the Caterpillar. She's gonna kill me afterwards. So I would say that this album is more patchy than forgettable. I can't even look at Eliza at the moment. I really like Anniversary, Alt End, and Going Nowhere. I just think that Going Nowhere, it ends at about just over 3 minutes in, and I think that could have really have been the epic ending song of this album. So they could have done with like an extra 3 minutes on that song, in my opinion. But so 1 or 2 good songs, but again, just not a consistent album.
As my 11th, I put Blood Flowers, and I feel bad putting it so high up because I actually think it's a really decent album. It's just one that I don't listen to a lot, and but it's got such a beautiful sadness and darkness to it in moments of it, and I think, yeah, I probably just need to listen to it more, but I'll put it at number 11 for now.
Nice. I'd say it is one of the better ones of their newer era, definitely.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean though, and sometimes it's not necessarily about how bad an album is, it's sometimes about how much better the other albums are.
And this is The Cure, so I feel like
yeah,
every one of their albums is so good.
Yeah, exactly. What have you got as your number 10?
At number 10, I've put Three Imaginary Boys, which I think is a really solid album. I love Fire in Cairo, 10:15 Saturday Night, and Subway Song. I'd say those are my favorites. And overall, I think I put it at number 10 because it's just not a sound that I gravitate towards most of the time. But I think it's a really brilliant album and a brilliant debut from The Cure, so I love it.
So my number 10, I've got Blood Flowers, and yeah, I do think it's possibly one of the best ones from their latter day period. A few favourites are Out of This World, Watching Me Fall, Where the Birds Always Sing, The Last Day of Summer, 39, and the title track. And I think this is one of those albums that I could just put on and just listen to. It doesn't blow me away, but it has a definite kind of approach and a vibe that is very listenable, and that's why I've ranked this at number 10. So at number 9, I've got Three Imaginary Boys, and I'll agree with you actually. It's not the kind of sound that I like of The Cure. It's very kind of sparse, it's very post-punk, and I do like post-punk, but there's something very raw about it, so it's not the sound that I really appreciate. Saying that, there's some really like good tracks on. There's like 10:15 Saturday Night, Another Day, Object, and Fire in Cairo. I would say that the title track is almost like a precursor to like 17 Seconds and Faith, and I feel that that was a real hint as to where they were about to go, and that's a great track in itself. So yeah, that is my number 9. And your number 9 is?
Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. And I know this is like a terrible thing to say because people really love and revere this album, and I do too, but like I said, it's just splitting hairs. I think from the start of this, from the very first track, there's so much energy and fun and excitement throughout this album. I like that it's quite eclectic. There's a mix of, you know, pop and sort of darker, more aggressive sounds. I think it's a really fun album for The Cure, and I really like it.
At number 8, what have you got?
17 Seconds. Now, I really dig this album. I think that it's great for a rainy day. It's got such a gloomy, dark sound to it that I really think works, and I really love putting it on if I'm tidying my room or if I'm sleeping. It's like a perfect album to just mellow about in. It's got a very nice atmosphere throughout, so that's why I've put it at number 8.
I've got Songs of a Lost World. I love this album. You can watch my review in that filthy little thing up there. It's only got 8 tracks on it. That's one of the things that I don't appreciate about it. I just think it could have been just that little bit longer. It just feels a little bit sparse on tracks. I still stand by my original point of that string sound on Alone. It just sounds really false. It feels like it's trying to be an acoustic sort of string sound and it isn't. But apart from that, this has some really, really strong songs on it. So really love A Fragile Thing, War Song. Drone No Drone is just excellent. That is such a strong song. I Can Never Say Goodbye, All I Ever Am, and of course the absolute final tearjerker that is End Song, and it's just epic. If you don't cry at that, you're probably dead. I don't think I've recovered from End Song yet. Like emotionally, I just don't think that I'm there yet. So Help. At number 7, I've got Wish. Now, I absolutely love this album. I'm not a huge fan of like the whimsical singles like Friday I'm in Love, Letter to Elise, but when they bring it down to like the emotion and the desolateness of a part, it's just like, oh God, your heart just sort of melts into your boots and then it kind of leaks out on the carpet. To Wish Impossible Things as well is just a gorgeous song, and Trust as well. So I really like the more emotional tracks on this album. There is a little bit of everything still, but I just think it does get a little bit invaded by the Friday I'm in Love crew. There's also some like really good sort of like more upbeat tracks on the album, like Open, From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea, and Cut. And those offer a really nice contrast to like the really happier songs and then the really heartbreaking songs.
My number 7 is Songs of a Lost World. For me, it was very emotional to listen to, even as someone who's not been a fan of The Cure for too long. But I think to me, it's such an introspective album, and it really does feel like the end. There's a lot of talk about death and growing old, and I think that's what makes it such a special album. And I found it really emotional with songs like And Nothing Is Forever and A Fragile Thing and I Can Never Say Goodbye. Those songs really made me cry, and especially the references to Shakespeare, Something Wicked This Way Comes. That's a really beautiful and sad song, and it's one of my favourite albums now.
To exist under that kind of weight of expectation, 16 years, it's a long time to wait for like a new album. It could easily have just given way under the pressure and the expectation, but it's such a strong album, and I really hope that this isn't their last album. There is talk of them releasing like at least 1 or 2 other albums as well, but I'm not totally sure about that. But hopefully they will release more, because it just feels like they've like found their mojo again.
Yeah,
really,
they've still got it. So
yeah,
I feel like,
and his voice is still amazing, isn't it?
So amazing.
It's just like all those years of touring have just honed his voice and just kept it young. It's like no time has passed. It's just absolutely incredible.
I've chosen Wish because I think it's a real magical, beautiful, dreamy album. Whenever I listen to it, I feel like I'm on cloud 9. I love the songs like A Letter to Elise, Open, and it's got real moments of sadness in it. So I really liked Apart as a sort of sad, beautiful song. So that's why I've put it at number 6.
So at my number 6, I've got 17 Seconds, their second album, and what a change from Three Imaginary Boys. It's a lot more desolate, focused. It's ultimately gloomy, but there are some classic tracks on this, such as Play for Today, and A Forest. I mean, who doesn't like The Forest? Is a classic. In between all of those, you've kind of got like the sparser Secrets and the gorgeous In Your House. I just love the arpeggiated guitar in that. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And I'd say it only ranks here because of how brilliant the other albums are that sit in front of it. So this is a great album. So if you like the bleak sound of The Cure, this is definitely one to check out. Number 5, I've got A Head on a Door. Love this album. There's very few tracks that I don't like on this album. Particular favourites are In Between Days, 6 Different Ways, and Close to Me. And then you got like the more kind of like stranger songs like Kyoto Song, The Blood and the Baby Screams, in direct contrast to all that lightness. And then the utterly dynamic Push. Oh my God.
I love that song.
Oh, the power of that song. It's amazing, isn't it? And A Night Like This, obviously, that is another dynamic song. And then you get the heartbreaking, sinking, I Am Slowing Down as the years go by. And it's just like, your heart just walks off. It's had enough. Do you know what I mean? It's tired and it needs to go and have a lie down. I'd say the only one that I would skip is Screw. Just never got on with that track, and that's the one that I would always miss out.
I've also put The Head on the Door at number 5. So I've got nothing else to say because you've said everything that I was basically going to touch on. It's just a fantastic album. Push is such an incredible song, and I just love how eclectic it is. You know, it's dark, but it's also upbeat, and I just love the tone of the album. I love everything about it. It's a fabulous album.
And number 4.
The Top. I put The Top at number 4 because I think it's a really fun, interesting, unique album from The Cure. It really is that bridge between Pornography and The Head on the Door, and it has the elements of both of those that I like in one album. I love Wailing Wall. I love Shake Dog Shake. I love Banana Fish Bones. I just love the whole album. It's so fun and groovy. If people still say groovy.
They do now. At number 4, I've got Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. It's really hard to say after a few drinks. Love this album. It's vast. It really is. I think it's about 17 tracks on it or something like that. Yeah, it's a bit of a mission to listen to it, but it feels like they took what they started with Head on a Door, and I think it's what you said about it's got so many different styles on it, and they really pushed it. I mean, there's almost every genre on it. Okay, there's no rap or metal.
I wish.
Yeah, that'd be great, wouldn't it? But there's just like the serious moments, like the kiss, which I have to say, if I've got the volume up too loud, it always makes me jump.
It's a scary song.
It really is, isn't it? Because it goes, you hit the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it catches me at every single time. But I do love that track though. It is like, it's deadly serious. And like, you've also got like Torture and How Beautiful You Are. And they're all like, they all feel quite like they're not as playful as the other tracks on the album. In contrast, you've got Catch and Perfect Girl, which are like really whimsical and cute, but they just work on this album. And then you get the weird and the wonderful, like If Only Tonight We Could Sleep and like Cockatoos. So they're stirring in lots of different genres all the time. My only criticism would be that it is a little bit too long. I think they could have lost some of the tracks. It could have been a tighter album. But if you want a little bit of every bit of The Cure all in one pot, then it's got to be this album, because it's just got a bit of everything. So my number 3, I've got Disintegration. I know it's a lot of people's favourite, and I get that, but it's a good album. It's not my favourite, obviously, because it's at number 3. I do really love Plain Song. I think the album starts really well. It's such a cosy song. Makes you want to like wrap up in winter with a coffee. I've just not been a fan of Pictures of You. I just think it goes on a little bit and it's a bit too simplistic for me. Love Song is okay. I do like Lullaby though, because that is just a brilliant video. You've got to watch the video. I would imagine most of you have seen the video for Lullaby, but it's so gorgeous. And the title track as well is really dynamic. I'd say my absolute favourite is The Same Deep Water as You. That is just a bit like Plain Song. It is just like, it's like a warm bath of Cure with some bubble bath put in. I just think it goes on a little bit too long in terms of the whole album. And that's why I've ranked it at my number 3.
My number 3, I've also put Disintegration. And this is where it gets really sort of neck and neck, because my top 3 are all so close to each other that it's so difficult to separate them. But I put Disintegration here because, and like you said, you've actually said exactly what I was going to say. I think it's the perfect winter album. It's always the one that I break out when it starts to get a little bit colder. And I just love that it's it feels really melancholy at times. It's just a beautiful, magical album. I'd say my favorite track actually doesn't have a title. It's untitled. And I think it's one of their best songs. I absolutely love it.
This is still an amazing album, and something has to be in each position. You know, I mean, they can't all be at number 1 and they can't all be at number 14. They've got to have a position. So it's still a great album, isn't it?
Yeah. You guys try ranking them yourselves, because it's very, very hard.
You try it. Don't give us that look. And at number 2?
Faith. Faith is my second favourite album because of its bleakness and this sense of hopelessness throughout the album. I really think this is, like, I want all these songs played at my funeral. All of them. I just think it's an incredible album, and the lyrics in it are so dark. And yeah, I love The Holy Hour. I love All Cats Are Grey, Funeral Party. I love them all. And that's why it's my second favourite album.
You say you want it played at your funeral, and there is actually a song called The Funeral Party. So it's perfectly aligned with that.
Maybe that's too meta though, do you think?
Well, do you know what I mean? I think we've all got to keep an open mind with this. Okay, so at my number 2, I also have Faith. I mean, what are the chances of that? Agree with everything that you just said. It's bleak. I think it hones what 17 Seconds started. I think that's why this is higher for me than 17 Seconds, is I think that they just went away and really worked on that sound. It's so, sorry to keep using the word desolate, but it's so desolate. The Funeral Party, for starters, is an amazing song. You've got Other Voices, The Drowning Man, All Cats Are Grey. It's just a dark, brooding album, and it's a classic, and that's why it's at my number 2. That's why it's at both of our number 2s.
Yeah.
I said number 2. So, the big moment. And number 1 Cure album. And mine is, you probably guessed it by now, Pornography. And this is as dark as it comes. We get those Russian drums on 100 Years, so you get a real adrenaline boost right from the outset. It doesn't matter if we all die. I mean, what a way to start an album. That kind of like sets the scene, really, doesn't it? Yeah. We get more rushing drums on Hanging Garden. And I don't know about you, but Hanging Garden always reminds me of Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah,
it's really got that kind of feel, hasn't it? That kind of tribal feel to it. And then, of course, you have like the more funeral march of Siamese Dream. I suppose you could describe the figurehead as catchy, maybe, but relatively speaking. But there's some gorgeous guitar on it. A Strange Day is also quite melodic and catchy in itself, I would say. And you want to wrap yourself up in cold. Do you know what I mean? You want to take cold and just use it as a duvet. After all that, though, the album doesn't leave that easy, because the title track is noisy, chaotic, and it's almost like Robert didn't want to allow us to get too comfortable.
It's genuinely sickening.
It really is, isn't it? Yeah. It jolts you, doesn't it? It sort of like rips you out of that coziness that they set up just a moment before. But that's why this album's great, is because it just expect the unexpected, I would say, with this album. The final lyrics, I must fight this sickness, find the cure. And I know that they were having quite a lot of turmoil in the band at that point. And I don't know what it is, but I just think the fact that he uses the word cure as well, I just think that it's almost like reflecting his inner turmoil, but also kind of like the dynamics in the band as well. And your number 1 is?
Pornography. It's the exact same as yours, and for the exact same reasons. I think it's an incredible, dark album, and I just think it really speaks to what a lot of people are going through. I think it's one of those albums that makes you feel like you're not alone, and that whatever pain you're in, you can't find the words to describe, is in these songs. That's why I think this album is so important. That's why I think The Cure's music is so important, because they've given people music to express how they feel. And I think this album is my favourite just because it's so dark and so brilliant, and sickening and horrible to listen to, but also incredible. And yeah, it's really, there's no other way to describe it. It's just my favourite album because it's amazing.
I think The Cure have a very, very wide reach.
Yeah.
If you talked about a band like Clan of Zymox, that's very niche. But with The Cure, everyone likes a Cure song. You know what I mean? You might like Friday I'm in Love, Love Song, even if it's those commercial ones. Everyone's got a Cure song that they like. But for us types, we're always going to go for the more bleak, desolate, desolation.
Desolateness.
Exactly. Let us know what your ranking is, because this is really interesting. And as I said at the beginning of the video, don't shake your fists at us. Give us your ranking and let us know why as well, because they're such an eclectic band. They've got a song for everyone. So it'd be interesting to see how the masses rank The Cure. Well, that just leaves me to say thank you very much to Eliza for joining me on this joint ranking of The Cure.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.